Hi, I'm Col Buckley. Welcome to Whiting Fever. Okay, what I want to do, I want to take advantage of being higher than the water, and this gives me a general view of my fishing patch. I can see gutters, I can see potholes, I can also see areas where I want to catch my beachworm, most important for whiting. So being higher than the water gives me a good perspective, and I'm going to stay here for a couple of minutes just to check things out. I can see I've got a couple of gutters in front of me. The waves are breaking probably 60 meters out, then there's a deep gutter, then they break again. So I've got plenty of areas to fish, and just to my left I've got a good wash where I can get my beachworms. Okay, here's some of the equipment I'm going to use today for number one, for catching the bait, and number two, for fishing for the whiting. So first of all, I've got my worming pliers here. These are pliers with teeth in to get the worms. This is my stink bait here, ready to go and attract the worms out the surf. Here I have a pilchard, which I'm going to use as a hand bait for my worms, and this is what I'm going to put the worms in. Here's my bait bucket, and last and not least, I've got my hooks and sinkers ready to go for when we get the worms and when we're going to do the whiting. Most important, keep hydrated. Hot day today, plenty of fresh water, and here's my bag to put my catch in. So all in all, I'm equipped to go and get the fantastic sand whiting. I've chosen my space for worming here. Now I don't know what type of worm I'm going to get. There's basically two types of worm. There's the slimy ones, not my favourite. Then there's the big green heads. They're superb for fishing, but I won't know until I start worming. Very important, I fish the tide half up or half down. Best time for worming. Dead low, they go a bit shy. Also wind. Worms do not like wind, and they don't come out in wind. You need some nice smooth sand. You'll never find worms in gravel because they get beaten to death by the wave action. Okay, there's two methods of getting worms. I'm going to start with a pair of worming pliers, but unfortunately this actually damages the worms. So what I'll do, if the worms are plentiful, I'll actually discard the pliers and also just use my fingers. Okay, let's give it a go, see how many worms we can get. Now we found a spot where there's plenty of worms. And as you can see, I've found a patch of worms and I'm sweeping the beach to try and bring up as many worms as possible. This is quite important because you can actually get 2 or 3 worms from one posse. Here we go, there's one here somewhere. Ah, God, slippery little sucker. Wait till the water comes. It's the water that gives the worm confidence to come up. And feed the pliers to the worm slowly, round, gotcha, and pull out slowly. There we are, prime whiting bait. There's another one here somewhere as well. using the hand bait just to bring it up again with the aid of the burley. The worms were being a bit spooky. The wind had got up, and worms do not like wind. They poke their head up, they feel that wind, and they don't come up. There's one here as well. Here we go. Ah, got away again. Using the hand bait to try and find the worm again. One thing for sure, when you go worming, you're going to get wet. So just be prepared, because worming is not a dry sport. There's one here. Nah, got the sea beating again. But patience, the worm's still there. Go back to it. Take the bait away and then go back to it. Gotcha. Slowly, slowly, so I don't break it. And there you go. Not big, but a great whiting bait. Put him in the bait box and then carry on looking. Just remember, only take enough for the session. Don't go berserk. Here we go. Here's another one here. Gotcha. Okay, now I've got my worms. What I have to do is get the slime off them. So I'm just going to go up the beach to the dry sand, roll them in the dry sand, and then just run them through my fingers to get the slime off. That way they last longer and they're a much better bait. I'm not going to take any more because I don't believe in taking too many worms. Just enough for a session. And the fact, as the tide rises, if I want more worms, I can get more worms. But it's getting hard to get now because of the wind, so we're going to give it away now. Just have a relax, and as the tide turns and on the way up, that's when we're going to go for those fantastic sand whiting. If you want to keep worms for future fishing, a great idea is to dip them in methylated spirits for about 2 seconds, just 2 seconds only. This preserves the worm, and then you can put them in the freezer in bags, Glad snap lock bags, and they'll last up to about 6 months. A great standby bait. Okay, let's recap what we've done. We've got our stink bag with our pilchards or kippers or some oily bait which brings up the worms. We've got our pliers, or we can use our fingers, and we've got our teaser bait, our hand bait, to grab the worm. We wait for the wash to come up. When the worm comes up with its little head, we wait till it arches its back, and then when it arches its back, we then put the pliers over the arch. Plenty of time. Remember, you've got plenty of time. Grab the worm like this, hold it, dig underneath the worm, and slowly pull out. Don't pull out too quick because you'll break the worm. And remember, only take enough worms for the session. And believe me, you'll have as much fun bait gathering as you will fishing. The rig I'm using is very simple. The secret is to keep it very simple. What I've got a ball sinker down here from a swivel. Just a small swivel. I'm using 4 to 5 kilo line. Then I've got like a snood or a paternoster to my whiting hook. This is a whiting hook with burrs on it, and this is going to be for my worm. And you notice that it's just above the sinker, so it doesn't tie up with each other. But very simple. You can actually have up here another swivel with another hook if you want. But I find in rough surf that tends to tangle around the line. I just keep it very simple, small ball sinker and the one snood. That's my whiting rig. And as you can see, the sinker and also the hook comes off the bottom ring of the swivel. My main line hits the top ring of the swivel, and both the sinker and the hook come off the bottom ring of the swivel. So I'm only using one swivel in this. If you want, you can put swivels halfway down your sinker line and halfway down your hook if you so want. But as I said, I want to keep this rig as simple as possible, and this is a very effective whiting rig. Some people do like the sinker above the swivel to give it a sliding effect and also to allow the bait to wash. The disadvantage of that is when you cast, the bait then flies back and can tangle around the main line. Also in the wash, the bait can also tangle around the sinker and you won't feel the bite. The advantage of this paternoster style rig that it can't tangle. It's very difficult to tangle, and you'll always feel that rat-a-tat-tat bite of the whiting. Another little secret, and I have used it on occasions and I don't know if it works, is to use red tubing or maybe even a red bead above the hook. Now this does work on occasions, but I've never fished with someone without a red bead or with a red bead to act as a control. But some people swear by that red tubing or red bead. They reckon it attracts the whiting's eye, and then they come in, smell the bait, whammo, you've got a hook up. And here I've got an 11-foot beach rod, a very lightweight rod, beautifully balanced, because beach sessions usually last for a lot of hours. So I like a nice lightweight rod. This is a one-piece rod. You can get 2 or even 3-piece beach rods. And my favourite reel for when I'm beach fishing is the old egg beater. You can use the overhead reel, or some people, especially Queenslanders, they use an Alvey reel. But a very light reel. It keeps the whole rig very light. So when I'm fishing for about 4 or 5 hours, I don't get RSI on my wrist from holding it. You notice there's runners all the way up there which keep the line off the rod itself, and also it's beautifully balanced. Beautifully balanced, hyper long grips. The line I'm using, as I said before, about 6 kilo, no heavier because it gets picked up in the wash. A heavier line also causes drag in the wash. I've set my drag for about 2 kilos, so if I get a decent fish on it, it will take drag. And that's it, a very simple rig, and we're ready to go fishing. Now you can see I've put a lot of worm on the hook. I'm a great believer in putting enough worm on the hook to choke a hippo. You've got to put plenty of worm on the hook and keep feeding it with worm. It's the worm that's going to attract the whiting. And worm puts out a mini burley trail, and it's that burley trail that brings the whiting round. So as you can see, plenty of worm on that hook, and we're ready to go. Okay, I found the gutter, and the reason I've got my rod low is because of the wind. So I'm trying to keep the belly out the line so I can feel that rack-a-tack bite. There's a school of sand whiting out there. They're not loner sand whiting, so I know if there's one, there's going to be a lot more, but they travel. So you might get a few dull periods and they'll come back again. You just got to be patient. I'm working the white water close to shore. You can see it's breaking out wide, then there's a gutter, and then it's breaking in close. Most people tend to cast over whiting to try and get out there, but you have to fish real close. It's in the white water because they're fossicking in the surf as it breaks on the beach, and that's where the whiting are. So make sure your bait's in that frothy, surfy, sudsy water, because that's where you'll find them. And of course another telltale is where the sand's being beaten up. That's a sure sign that there's a lot of activity, and in go the whiting, because they're hoovering animals. They hoover the bottom. So when there's churned up sand, you'll always find the whiting there fossicking for food. So if you ever come across a sandbank or a hole, don't fish the middle of it, that's where all the ooglies are. Fish the edges of it, that's where the whiting are. They're right on the edges, hoovering up the edges, because they're shallow water fish. They really risk their lives to get into shallow water. They're not in the deep water, they're in the shallow water. So work the edges of the holes and the gutters. Well, thanks a lot for joining us on Whiting Fever, and you can see how important it was to start with bait. Spend a bit of time bait gathering and the rest is downhill. Well, there you go, Whiting Fever. We hope to bring you more in the fever series, Kingfish Fever and also Brim Fever. I'm Col Buckley and we'll see you on the water. Until then, good luck and good fishing.